Invincible is, without a doubt, one of the best and most faithful TV adaptations of a comic book, and definitely the best animated superhero show to ever exist. This show takes so many of the usual superhero tropes that have been popularized over the years and turns them on their head, all while honoring what makes the genre great. That being said, for the better, and definitely for the worse, Invincible does have its own fair share of hated characters, sometimes intentionally and sometimes completely by accident. Today, we will be going over some of the most hated characters the show has to offer. But first, let's start with a few honorable mentions. Rexplode in season 1 of Invincible was beyond unlikable. He started his journey as an annoying member of the teen team. In one of his earliest appearances, he cheats on Adam Eve. However, over the course of the past few seasons, he underwent some serious character growth. From getting his hand bitten off to literally getting shot right in the head, it is clear that he has been through a lot, and with his final sacrifice at the end of the Invincible War so that his friends can escape an invincible variant remains one of the most emotional scenes of the entire series. And looking back at his character, it's abundantly clear that the choice to make him an annoying douche was definitely an intentional decision that resulted in one of the greatest character arcs in all of comic book medium. Another honorable mention goes to the main character himself, Mark Grayson. Mark, also known as Invincible, is one of the most likable characters, but that isn't to say that he hasn't had his share of controversial moments. One of the first of these comes in season 1, episode 6, when despite repeated warning by William, Mark doesn't help Rick due to his own personal relationship problems, almost leading to both his friends turning to heartless cyborgs. Another such moment comes in season 3, episode 7. When Eve gets hurt during the Invincible War, Mark makes the very controversial decision of staying back at the hospital with her to ensure her safety while the other variants wreak havoc across the globe. Despite these, it's pretty clear that the choice to sometimes let Mark make mistakes is an intentional decision, as it makes him human and more relatable to the common people. With that out of the way, let's move on to someone who actually wasn't meant to be hated, but is deeply despised anyway. When season 1 of Invincible first came out, it was a breath of fresh air and a show that wasn't afraid to challenge the conventional tropes of superhero storytelling, with many regarding it as the best superhero show ever. But one scene definitely stood out and stands the test of time as one of the most controversial scenes in the comic book genre. Amber was Mark Grayson's love interest for the first 2 seasons. And when Mark reveals his secret identity to her, her reaction was something no one expected. Even though the writers completely overhauled her character for the second season, making her more understanding and supportive, it wasn't able to undo the damage that was caused by a single scene. Moving on to one of the most hated characters, we have the oldest Viltrumites, Conquest. Conquest is the second strongest Viltrumite, and from the moment he appears on screen, he is unlike any other soldier we have met. He is bloodthirsty and just wants to fight an opponent capable of standing up to him. In just the span of a single episode, Conquest cements himself as one of the best villains in the show. From almost splitting Oliver in half to seemingly murdering Adam Eve in one of the most shocking scenes of the whole series, Conquest does some truly evil things. And the choice to make him despicable was definitely intentional, as the scene when Mark finally gets the upper hand and seemingly kills Conquest for good is one of the most satisfying and unforgettable scenes of the entire show. Yeah, now let's talk about a character who might surprise a lot of you. That character is none other than Cecil. Cecil Stedman, the director of the Global Defense Agency, has always been shown as a morally gray character who only wants to protect the people of Earth and doesn't hesitate to make ethically questionable choices to maintain control. From working with criminals like Darkwing 2 and D.A. Sinclair to planning countermeasures against the strongest hero on the planet, Cecil isn't afraid to use any and all of the resources at his disposal. And in his desperate attempts to maintain control over a world that is beyond the understanding of many people, Cecil Stedman takes one of the most controversial decisions, resulting in a lot of backlash from the fanbase. At the end of season 3, Cecil decides to keep Conquest alive to obtain information about the Viltrum Empire. To make matters worse, he has deployed one of the most pathetic sets of countermeasures against the strongest superhuman the planet has ever seen. In conclusion, this out-of-character decision was made only as a plot device to keep Conquest alive for season 4. And definitely a decision with unintended consequences by the writers. Next up, we have one of, if not the most universally hated couples, the Immortal and Duplicate. Let's talk about them one by one. When we were introduced to Immortal in the first episode of the show, we saw his leadership and combat skills in action. He led the Guardians of the Globe and made sure to keep people from harm's way. However, by the end of the very same episode, he is killed alongside the other members of the Guardians by Omni-Man. The Mauler twins bring him back to life at the end of the season when he manages to give Omni-Man some trouble, but he is once again murdered in one of the most shocking scenes of the season. From here, the Immortal continues to lose almost every fight. From getting killed by an Invincible variant to getting humbled by the Mauler twins, the downfall of Immortal was pretty clear. To make matters worse, his attitude towards the other team members is also not ideal. As for Duplicate, she is introduced alongside Adam, Eve, and the other members of the teen team when they defend against the Flaxen invasion. She proves herself to be an invaluable asset by working with the team and using her powers in some very creative ways. But similar to the Immortal, Kate's character also seems to degrade as the show progresses. She's a good ally against street-level villains, but when there are maniacs like Angstrom Levy and Conquest on the loose, there is not much she can do. All of the duplicates get killed against No Goggles Mark, and she loses to the Mauler twins alongside the rest of the Guardians of the Globe. Once again, to make matters worse, she is extremely hypocritical of Rex and Ray. To sum it all up, both Immortal and Duplicate have solidified their place as some of the most unlikable characters across the last few seasons, which is safe to assume an unintended decision by the showrunners. Now, for one of the most intensely hated Viltrumites, Anissa. Anissa represents everything that makes the Viltrum Empire terrifying. She is cold, ruthless, and completely loyal to the Viltrumite cause. From the moment she appears on screen, she establishes herself as a major threat. She easily overpowers Mark and demonstrates the overwhelming strength of the Viltrumites. But what makes her truly hated is her complete lack of empathy, which leads her to do some unforgivable things in the future. She does not see humans as equals. Her actions and mindset perfectly represent the oppressive nature of the Viltrumites. Moving on to one of the most disturbing characters of the entire show, we have D.A. Sinclair. Sinclair, the creator of the Reaniman, was introduced in Season 1, Episode 6, when we saw him experimenting on college students and turning them into cyborg zombies. His utter disregard for human life makes him one of the most disturbing characters in the series. Even after being captured, he is allowed to continue his work under Cecil's supervision, using dead corpses, which makes the situation even more unsettling, even though his Reaniman proved to be one of the most effective countermeasures against any Viltrumite. His complete lack of remorse for his actions is what makes him one of the most hated characters in the show. Now let's talk about a character who is also hated by the fans, but for the completely opposite reasons. Adam Wilkins, also known as Adam Eve's dad, is one of the most hated parents among the Invincible fans. He consistently fails to support his daughter. Instead of appreciating her abilities and her desire to help people, he criticizes her and tries to force her into a normal life. He does not understand her, and instead of trying to, he dismisses her completely. His lack of support pushes Eve away and contributes to her emotional struggles. What makes him so hated is how realistic they are. Unlike supervillains or conquerors, Adam represents a type of negativity that exists in real life. Unsupportive parents who fail to understand their children, and that makes him one of the most frustrating characters in the entire series. And finally, we have Omni-Man, also known as Nolan Grayson, is the father of Mark and the husband of Debbie Grayson. When we were first introduced to Omni-Man, also known as Nolan Grayson, he appeared to be the perfect superhero. He was the strongest protector of Earth, a loving husband, and a caring father. He represented everything a superhero should be. However, all of that changed in a single night. In one of the most shocking scenes in television history, Omni-Man brutally murdered the Guardians of the Globe. This moment completely redefined his character and instantly made him one of the most hated characters in the entire series. The sheer brutality of his actions, combined with the betrayal of the world's greatest heroes, made it clear that he was not the hero everyone believed him to be. Throughout the season, we have little bits and pieces coming into place, with each episode giving us a little more insight into his actions, until the season finale. When we learn about the Earth-Shattering, reveal that Omni-Man is not Earth's protector, but an agent of the Viltrum Empire who was here to fulfill his duty and conquer the planet. When Mark finally confronts him, Omni-Man doesn't hesitate to physically and emotionally destroy his own son. He beats Mark to the brink of death and justifies his actions by explaining the Viltrumite mission to conquer Earth. He calls Debbie a pet and doesn't hesitate to put his son through a train of people to prove a point. He shows no remorse for the countless lives lost, viewing humans as insignificant. This moment cemented his place as one of the most terrifying and hated characters in the show. But what makes Omni-Man such a compelling character is his complexity. Despite his horrific actions, he is not purely evil. His internal conflict and eventual regret add layers to his character, making him one of the best written characters in the entire series. The hatred toward him was intentional, and it made his later character development far more impactful, as he has one of the best character arcs in the entire superhero genre. If you made it this far, a like would really be appreciated, and if you enjoyed this video, there are plenty more for you to check out. Thank you so much for watching, and remember to subscribe for more breakdowns of everything Invincible.